Prison is supposed to take your power away. They put you in a cell, they take your name, they give you a number, they tell you when to eat, when to sleep, when to breathe. But the 10 men on this list didn't lose power when they went to prison. They gained it. Some of them ran entire organizations from behind bars. Some of them ordered murders from solitary confinement. Some of them brokered deals with foreign governments from a prison phone. And one of them controlled 50,000 soldiers from the most secure facility on Earth. These are the men the system was built to contain. And the system failed. This is number 10 to number 1. And the man at number 1 proved that no wall, no cell, and no supermax prison could stop his orders from reaching the streets. Number 10. Mutulu Shakur, Federal Prison, 1986 to 2022. Most people know him as Tupac's stepfather. But Mutulu Shakur was one of the most dangerous men the FBI ever hunted, long before his stepson became the most famous rapper in the world. Mutulu was a leader of the Black Liberation Army. In 1981, he helped orchestrate the Brinks armored car robbery in Nyack, New York. 2 police officers and a Brinks guard were killed during the heist. Before that, he was connected to the prison escape of Assata Shakur, Tupac's godmother, who was broken out of a New Jersey women's prison in 1979 and smuggled to Cuba, where she remains free to this day. Mutulu was placed on the FBI Most Wanted list. He evaded capture for years before being arrested in 1986. He was sentenced to 60 years. For the next 36 years, Mutulu Shakur ran revolutionary politics from behind federal walls. He organized, he educated, he influenced an entire generation of political prisoners who saw him as a symbol of resistance. He was finally released on compassionate release in 2022, terminally ill with cancer. He died in 2023. The FBI Most Wanted list, a prison break, an armored car robbery, and a stepson who became the voice of a generation. Mutulu Shakur was dangerous before he went in. He stayed dangerous every day he was inside. Number 9. Pistol Pete Rollack, ADX Florence, 2000 to present. Peter Rollack was 20 years old when he built Sex Money Murder into one of the most violent drug organizations on the East Coast, operating out of the Soundview houses in the South Bronx. By the time the feds caught up with him, his crew had left a trail of bodies across New York. But Pistol Pete did not stop when they locked him up. From a federal prison cell in Lewisburg, North Carolina, hundreds of miles from the Bronx, Rollack sent a coded letter to his girlfriend. That letter contained instructions. Those instructions led to 2 men being gunned down during the annual Thanksgiving Day football game between Soundview and Castle Hill houses. One of the victims was a cooperating witness shot at a football game on Thanksgiving, while families watched. The feds traced the order back to Rollack's coded letter. He received life plus 105 years. He was transferred to ADX Florence, the most secure federal prison in America, where he has been in permanent solitary confinement since the year 2000. 25 years in a box, no phone calls, no visitors, no contact with the outside world. Because the last time Peter Rollack was allowed to communicate with anyone, someone died on Thanksgiving. Number 8. Big Meech, SMU Lewisburg, 2011 to 2013. The federal government admitted that in 15 years of investigating BMF, the DEA never saw Demetrius Flannery with product. They never heard him discuss it on the phone. They never witnessed a single transaction. But they could not stop his influence, not even from behind bars. In 2011, after a fight at a federal facility in Atlanta, Meech was sent to the Special Management Unit, called the SMU, at Lewisburg Penitentiary, the most restrictive program in the entire Bureau of Prisons. On paper, the SMU was described as housing the most violent and disruptive inmates in the federal system. In reality, Meech said it was code for the most influential. 23 hours a day in a cell, 1 hour out, 5-minute showers with the water cut off, handcuffed behind your back every time you left the cell. If you did not comply, they gassed you. Blind spots in the hallways of one of the oldest prisons in the country. Inmates thrown down stairs while handcuffed behind their backs with no way to break the fall. Meech did 2 years in those conditions. Not because he hurt anyone, because everywhere he went in the federal system, inmates followed his lead. Guards could not control the energy he brought to a yard. The system did not fear his violence, they feared his influence. And they could not figure out how to lock that in a cell. Number 7. Tookie Williams, San Quentin, death row, 1981 to 2005. Stanley Tookie Williams co-founded the Crips in Los Angeles in 1971. By the time the gang spread across America, it had become one of the largest and most violent criminal organizations in the country. In 1981, Williams was convicted of 4 murders and sentenced to death. He was sent to San Quentin's death row, where he would spend the next 24 years. But here is what made Tookie Williams one of the most dangerous men in any prison in America. He did not just maintain power from behind bars, he transformed it. From death row, Williams wrote a series of children's books aimed at steering young people away from gang life. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature. He brokered gang truces between the Crips and the Bloods from inside his cell. He became the most prominent anti-gang voice in the country, and he was doing it from a cage where the state of California planned to kill him. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger denied clemency. On December 13, 2005, Stanley Tookie Williams was executed by lethal injection at San Quentin. He was 61 years old. The man who built one of the most destructive gangs in American history spent his last 2 decades trying to undo the damage from the same cell where the state planned to end his life. The system wanted to silence him. Instead, it made his voice louder. Number 6. Rayful Edmond, United States Penitentiary, Lewisburg, 1990s. Rayful Edmond controlled 60% of Washington, D.C.'s cocaine supply before he was arrested at age 24. His operation employed over 150 soldiers and generated an estimated $300 million a year. He helped make Washington, D.C. the murder capital of America. When they locked him up at the maximum security penitentiary at Lewisburg, most people assumed that was the end of the story. It wasn't. Edmond had access to phones on B cell block practically whenever he wanted. He spent several hours every day on the telephone. Sometimes he used 2 lines simultaneously, and he was not calling his mother. Rayful found a Colombian inmate named Osvaldo Trujillo Blanco, the son of the infamous Griselda Blanco. From inside federal prison, Edmond brokered deals between Washington, D.C. drug dealers on the outside and Trujillo Blanco's Colombian connections. He set up 20 to 25 separate trafficking operations from his cell. To avoid detection, he used Pig Latin on the phone. Pig Latin is a children's language game he used to move multi-kilogram shipments of cocaine from a federal prison telephone. When the federal authorities finally caught on, Edmond received an additional 30 years on top of the life sentence he was already serving. The Attorney General publicly criticized the Bureau of Prisons for allowing a convicted drug lord to run a trafficking operation from behind bars. Rayful Edmond did not just survive prison, he used prison as his new office, and he almost got away with it. Number 5. Jeff Fort, Federal Prison, 1988 to present. Jeff Fort, also known as Abdullah Malik, was the founder and leader of the Black Pea Stone Nation, later renamed El Rukn. At its peak, the organization controlled large sections of Chicago's South Side and had thousands of members. Fort was already serving an 80-year sentence when he decided that running a street gang from prison wasn't ambitious enough. In 1986, federal agents intercepted communications revealing that Fort had been negotiating with the government of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi's regime, for $2.5 million. The deal was simple. Libya would pay El Rukn that sum to commit acts of domestic terrorism on American soil. Fort brokered the entire arrangement from inside a federal prison cell. The plot was intercepted before any attacks could take place. Fort was convicted of conspiracy and received an additional 75 years. He is currently housed at ADX Florence, the same supermax facility that holds the worst of the worst. Most prison leaders run drug operations from behind bars. Jeff Fort tried to broker an international terrorism deal with a foreign government from a phone inside a federal penitentiary. That's not just dangerous, that's a level of ambition that made the Department of Justice rethink what a prisoner was capable of. Number 4, Bumpy Johnson, Alcatraz, from 1953 to 1963. Before ADX Florence existed, there was Alcatraz, the most feared prison in America. Surrounded by the freezing waters of San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz had no successful escapes in its history. It was the place where the federal government sent the men it wanted to forget. Bumpy Johnson was sent there in the early 1950s on a drug conspiracy conviction. The government thought that putting the godfather of Harlem on an island in the Pacific would end his reign. They were wrong. While other inmates deteriorated mentally, physically, emotionally, Bumpy used Alcatraz as a university. He read philosophy, he studied history, he played chess at a level that impressed guards and inmates alike. He maintained his discipline when the isolation was designed to destroy it. When Bumpy was released in 1963, Harlem gave him an impromptu parade. The streets were lined to welcome him home. After 10 years on the most brutal island in the federal system, he came home sharper, more disciplined, and more respected than the day he left. Alcatraz was built to break men. Bumpy Johnson walked out of it stronger than he walked in. He went right back to running Harlem until the day he died, eating chicken and grits at his favorite restaurant at 2 in the morning. A free man. Number 3, Hugo Yogi Bear Pinell, Pelican Bay, SHU, 1971 to 2015. Hugo Pinell was a founding member of the Black Guerrilla Family, one of the original and most feared prison gangs in American history. His story is one of the most disturbing on this entire list. In August 1971, Pinell participated in a failed escape attempt at San Quentin alongside Black Guerrilla Family founder George Jackson. During the chaos, Pinell helped slit the throats of 2 prison guards. 6 people died that day. Jackson was shot and killed by tower guards. Pinell survived. He was sentenced to life. And then the state of California did something that sounds like it came from a horror movie. They put Hugo Pinell in solitary confinement, the security housing unit at Pelican Bay. 23 hours a day in a windowless cell, no human contact, no phone calls, no touch. 45 years in solitary, from 1971 to 2015. Nearly half a century in a box, longer than most people on this channel have been alive. In 2015, as part of a legal settlement over the use of solitary confinement in California prisons, Pinell was finally released to general population at a Sacramento area prison. He was 71 years old. He had spent more time in isolation than any other inmate in the state. Within days of being released to the yard, the Aryan Brotherhood stabbed him to death. 45 years of solitary could not kill Hugo Pinell, but 4 days in general population did. The state kept him alive in a box for nearly half a century, and the moment they let him out, the yard finished what the system never could. Number 2, George Jackson, Soledad and San Quentin, 1960 to 1971. George Jackson went to prison at 18 years old for stealing $70 from a gas station. He was sentenced to 1 year to life under California's indeterminate sentencing laws. He would never walk free again. Inside prison, Jackson transformed himself into one of the most influential revolutionary thinkers of the 20th century. He co-founded the Black Guerrilla Family, a prison gang built on Marxist-Leninist ideology, black liberation, and armed resistance. Unlike other prison gangs that were built around profit, the BGF was built around revolution. Jackson wrote 2 books from inside prison, Soledad Brother and Blood in My Eye. Both became bestsellers. Both were studied by revolutionaries around the world. Angela Davis, one of the most prominent activists in America, championed his case and was placed on the FBI Most Wanted list for her involvement. On August 21, 1971, Jackson was shot and killed during an escape attempt at San Quentin. He was 29 years old. The official account says Jackson smuggled a gun into the prison. His supporters say he was assassinated. His death triggered riots in prisons across the country. It sparked a national conversation about prison conditions, racial injustice, and the treatment of black inmates. The BGF he founded is still active today, over 50 years later. And the prison reform movement that his death ignited has shaped every policy debate about incarceration in America since. George Jackson went to prison for $70. He came out as a symbol. He never made it to 30, but the organization he built and the words he wrote from inside a cell are still shaking the system more than half a century later. Number 1, Larry Hoover, a DX Florence, 1997 to present. Larry Hoover is the chairman of the Gangster Disciples, an organization with an estimated 50,000 members operating across 35 states. He has been in prison since 1973. He has been at ADX Florence, the most secure prison in the United States, since 1997. And none of that has stopped him from running the organization. From behind bars, Hoover restructured the Gangster Disciples from a street gang into what federal prosecutors called a corporate criminal enterprise. He implemented a hierarchical command structure with governors, regents, coordinators, and enforcers. He established rules. He settled disputes. He directed operations across state lines. Federal authorities moved him from Illinois State Prison to the federal system specifically because they could not stop his influence at the state level. When that did not work, they moved him to ADX Florence, the same facility that holds terrorists, spies, and the worst of the worst. At ADX, Hoover is in solitary confinement. No contact visits, no phone calls to anyone outside his approved list. Monitored 24 hours a day, every piece of mail screened, every conversation recorded. And still, according to federal prosecutors, his orders reached the streets. 50,000 soldiers, 35 states, billions of dollars in drug revenue over the decades. An organization so structured that it operates like a government within a government. And the man who built it has been in a cell for over 50 years. Larry Hoover has been locked up since Richard Nixon was president. He has been in prison through every president since, including Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, and Trump again. The world has changed completely since the last time Larry Hoover breathed free air, and his organization is still standing. That is why he is number 1. Not because of what he did on the streets, but because of what he did from a place designed to make him powerless. The most secure prison in America. 24-hour surveillance, total isolation. And his word still reaches every corner of the country. The system was built to contain men like Larry Hoover. It has spent 50 years trying, and 50 years later, the chairman is still giving orders.